We are all excited that you're here. We, all of us that are, well, I'd say our 4 presenters, but we have one presenter who's experiencing some extreme challenges with her living situation. She's getting a house majorly renovated, and soot fell from the chimney into her home, and so she's not sure that she can be here. So there are supposed to be 4 of us. There are 3 of us for sure, and the 3 of us will take the space of 4 of us. We love this to be really interactive, and we love that you're here live with us. And because we may be getting more and more people on here, if you can mute yourself, that will help to just make sure that the recording of this is as pristine as possible. And then there will be times where we'll ask you to, come out and talk to us, and then, of course, unmute yourself. All of us here, again, we 4 trainers, or 3, with Brenda in absentia right now, we are really passionate about BANK. And we're all going to talk about very briefly about why we're so passionate about BANK. And, BANK is personality assessment, stands for Blueprint Action Nurturing Knowledge. And so what I'm going to say is I'm going to start out, and you can see a little bit about me. Why I was drawn to BANK was its simplicity. I've been involved in business and communications for all of my life. I was creating worksheets for kids to take when I was coming out of kindergarten. I'd come home and teach my stuffed animals how to do whatever it was that I had learned in kindergarten that day. And I just have been really drawn to the fact that how can you connect with another person? How can you teach them? How can you connect with them if you know what drives them? And so when I first was presented, BANK was presented to me, I thought, oh my gosh, this makes everything so easy, so simplistic, it's accessible. And then from my business and marketing mind, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, if we understand on a really basic level to whom we're speaking, from what's important to them, oh my gosh, like what is that going to do? Just really important. So each of us is going to very briefly introduce ourselves, and so I'm going to turn it over to Mark, my husband and fellow BANKCODE trainer. And Mark, you need to unmute.
I'm going to unmute myself. Gosh, what a concept. Yes, and of course, when I first discovered BANK, it was because my lovely wife, who just spoke to you, brought this thing home and said, I've got this interesting thing. Do you want the simple version, the medium version, or the long version? And I said, let's do the medium. And she started telling me about it. And then she took me through the BANKPASS. And of course, I did what maybe some of you have done, which is move the cards around on screen. And as I was looking at this, I'm thinking about my background as a mental health professional for 30 years. And as I was looking at what was happening before me, I was realizing if I had had this back then when I was first being a therapist, I probably could have cut my initial sessions down by 3, because a lot of what happens in those initial sessions with a client is you have to figure out how they communicate, where they are with their version of life, and et cetera. And there's a lot of discovery that needs to happen. Not saying that BANK would have been the be-all, end-all, but it certainly would have been an avenue to get into where they were probably coming from and a place to start. And it would have cut through a whole lot of things that I had to do to get to that point. So I was very impressed with BANK right away, because I said, yeah, this would have saved a lot of time. And I think that's kind of a, what's the word? Not a motto, but a mascot. But it's the idea that BANK really is a time saver. And now we've got something that's going to save even more time.
And so since Brenda's not here to introduce herself, this is Marie speaking. I guess all of you can see me. But I'll introduce Brenda because we've known each other for over 3 decades. We actually met at a conference at Love Field Inn at right next to Love Field Airport in Dallas, Texas, when we were both speaker trainers for a seminar company. And so that's how far back we go. And Brenda's been an entrepreneur all of these years. She is an NLP practitioner. She has done everything that she has done has been about training to truly make a difference in people's lives, from communication training to personal safety training. It's amazing the various topics that this woman has trained on. And the way that she was introduced to BANK was actually through me. I saw a webinar that Sherry Tree did and was absolutely blown away. First of all, I received an email about the webinar, and something about it said that she was going to talk about predicting buying behavior in less than 90 seconds. And I'm thinking, what? You know, my background, professional background, is in business communications. I have taught management and leadership development for decades. That's what I've done, always trying to help companies to grow their bottom line. And so when I heard that title, I was very suspicious. I thought, you know, I've seen it all. But I got on that webinar and she absolutely blew me away. Luckily, I was able to get a replay of that webinar and send it to Brenda. And because I knew as soon as she heard about this, methodology, she would be just wanting to utilize it in all of her trainings. And I was right. So that's Brenda, my friend Brenda, for over 30 years. And of course, this is me. As I've just mentioned, I've been a teacher, trainer, educator, professor for more years than I would like to admit to. I've owned my own training company, sold it in 2005, retired for 6 years, and then started working with much smaller organizations to help them create referral-based businesses. And just over probably it was about March of 2018 when I was introduced to BANK. And as I said, that webinar was just absolutely amazing. And I knew from the get-go that this was something that I thought I wanted to be a part of. But being the great blueprint that I am, I had to do my due diligence and before making that decision, and here I am. So that's who we are, and I want you all to know as we're getting started here, I know some of you have been through some of our trainings prior to this, and you're here to learn about the AI, but there are some people perhaps who will be on this webinar who know nothing about BANK. So I just want you to know that this is not something that Sherry Tree just, you know, thought up one day. The whole concept of personality assessments dates back to 400 BC. Goes back to Hippocrates, the father of medicine, when he actually divided the population, if you will, into 4 temperaments, four distinct groups. And that's how he treated them, not according to their illness, but according to their temperament. And all of these personality assessments that have come into being over the years have all been based or patterned after what Hippocrates came up with. The difference is in that and in BANK is that all of those assessments are based in psychology. So what happened was, just to give you a little brief synopsis, Sherry Tree 20 years ago was a young commission-based salesperson, and she wasn't doing very well at all. And as her company kept bringing in, you know, new trainers, and part of what they did was put them through various assessments, like you and I probably have been through DISC and Myers-Briggs and many, many others. And at first, Sherry was really fascinated with all of that, learning more about herself. But what she began to realize is, I'm not the person that I need to know more about. I need to know more about the person sitting in front of me, the one that I'm trying to sell something to. And that's when she really began to question the way that sales is done, and over a 20-year period has created the bank methodology. It's now been scientifically validated. What makes it so different from everything else out there is that it is a reverse engineered assessment. It's not based in psychology. It's based in biology, B-U-Y-O-L-O-G-Y, biology. And it's the only methodology in the world scientifically validated to predict buying behavior in less than 90 seconds. Until now, and tonight you're going to see that we can predict buying behavior in a nanosecond. So with that, let's get into just a very quick synopsis of what each of the codes actually mean. My highest code of the 4 is blueprint. So what a blueprint is, or what I am like, is someone who is very structured. You see a box there in the bottom left of the screen. Blueprints like structure. We think of them as being in the box, inside of the box. Blueprints like to know step by step what's going to be taking place. They are always on time, and what by on time I mean at least 15 minutes before start time. Blueprints love making sure that everything is operating according to budget, or below budget is even better. And they're thrifty people. They like to save whenever possible. So that's a blueprint, someone who is inside the box. And next we have action. Brenda Wise, who is not able to be on tonight, is our action of the 4 of us here tonight. An action is someone who is a mover and shaker. You see that box in the bottom left? You see a rocket coming out of it. So an action is what box? You know, they can't stand being confined to a box. They're shooting out of any box. They love the red carpet. That's hence the color red for action. You see the microphone there on the bottom right. They love being on stage, the center of attention. They love designer clothing. So an action is Brenda Wise, and I'm sorry she's not here to be able to share that with you herself. And so next we have nurturing.
Yes, and so what's funny is, so my first code is blueprint, just like Marie's. And so who were the first 2 people on this call? It was Dawn and Marie. But my second code is a very high nurturing. And what, if you look at the box, it's that, you know, there's the recycle symbol, because nurturing's personalities are all about the connection, the relationships, the community. They want to make an impact. And so you can even hear my voice, like it's come down a bit and it's softer and it's gentler. Whereas the blueprints are probably more steady, the actions are high energy, the nurturings are just this very comfortable, warm personality type. And then we go into the very interesting 4th personality, the knowledge.
The knowledge. So, in the interest of time, by the way, I'm going to try to make this brief, but before I do that, I also want to say that the knowledge is probably the one of the 4 codes that would have the most difficulty with making things brief. Because what's knowledge about? Knowledge is about information. And so the knowledge people want to make sure that you get as much necessary information as you need, and they feel compelled to do so. Therefore, they could stretch things out a lot with a lot more information than, say, a blueprint would ever need. But the thing about knowledge is that they also, in turn, need to have information. So what happens with a knowledge is if they feel like they don't have the information they need, or if there's a gap, say, in the information, they often shut down. So you might lose, in a sale, you might lose your knowledge person because they suddenly stopped because there was some part of what you were saying that didn't make sense or whatever, and they have to make sense. So it all has to make sense. And that's part of how they work. So the other thing about a knowledge, and this is one of the many quotes, one of the many sound bites that we have, is that knowledge is probably the only one of the 4 codes that if they say, I need to think about it, they're actually telling the truth. The rest of them, a nurture would be letting you down easy. I'm not sure if an action would even say that. They'd probably just say bye-bye. But knowledge needs time to think about it. And if you let them have the time to think about it, and if you give them everything they need to make the decision they need to make, you're probably going to not only have a customer or a client, but you may have a customer or a client for life, because so many people probably don't take the time to make sure they have what they need. So now we move to the main event. This is the star of our show, the future of sales, as BANKCODE says. So one of the things we say is about Bank is that it's the quickest personality assessment in the world. Well, we said that before the AI came about. So all of a sudden we've got something that is quicker than the quickest personality assessment in the world. And we've been working with it. We've been working with it for over a week now, and we are continually gaining information, and we're also gaining knowledge about how to use it. And we've already discovered several different ways to use it that we didn't know when the last time we did this webinar, which was pretty much a week ago. So I invite you to, jump in and explore what you're going to be hearing about, because it's really a groundbreaker, I believe.
And so where we're going to go now, and we're just going to do this off the cuff. I mean, some things we've prepared, but it's also, when we did this a week ago, we'd had about 8 hours access to the AI tool, which was awesome. Now we've had a week and we've done some different things. So we're going to show you some of the things we've pushed through the AI, and then you're going to have an opportunity to send us what you want us to send through the AI. So be thinking as you're seeing our examples, is it a URL? Is it an email? Copy of an email? Is it a text that you got from someone? Send, so you can put that in the chat, and we can send it through. So as you're thinking about that, also look at some of the examples we're going to share with you. And all of us have different examples. So I'm going to start with, and again, we're moving back and forth among different screens because we're showing you the insides of our system, what we have access to. And so we've got to go back and forth to through these different systems. So the first thing I'm going to do, and we're going to go ahead and start with Marie. So Marie, I know you sent in a couple of examples, and one of them was an email that you sent to a group of business partners. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in the AI tool, and you can go ahead and explain what this is.
Okay. Thank you, Dawn. So this particular email was, a group of people. I send an email to them 3 or 4 times per month. And I know the people very well. I work with them on a daily basis almost. And I thought, wow, I should check to see what the bank code is. Am I reaching all of am I utilizing all codes as I send this email? So what Dawn has done is she has pasted it into the AI, and that's the code. So what you're seeing is a barcode, a bar chart, and you see the blueprint is probably just about equal to the knowledge in height. Those bars are pretty equal, and then nurturing is next, and then action. But overall, I hit all of the codes, and so I was really, really excited about that.
And what I have to say is with some of the stuff that Mark and I have been doing, and Marie, I'm sure you've seen this as well, is there's also a difference between the heights of those bar graphs, right? So all of these are fairly high. We've seen some things we've put through the AI, or other people have put through the AI, where these codes or these bar graphs have been pretty low. And that's fascinating. Like, you know, we don't know what the proprietary algorithms are, because that's why CodeBreaker AI has its thing and nobody else has it. But it's like, oh, it's looking at, I mean, these are pretty high. These are some of the highest bar graphs that we've seen. So Marie, I'd say you did a fantastic job with this, by the way.
I was pretty pleased with that one, actually. Yes.
Yeah, you did a great job.
So just to explain that a little bit in more detail. So because this email goes out to a whole group of people, and I know those people, so I know that there's a high blueprint. I know that there's an action. I know that there's a nurturing. I know that there's a knowledge amongst that group. So I want to make sure that that one email hits all of those codes almost equally.
Yeah, and that's a really important point. And I think I'll go to my next example because it's going to segue off that. So as Marie was saying, she's got a huge audience, and they're made up of all different codes. And if you think about the fact that there's 4 different personality codes, but we all have all 4, if you remember your algebra and your statistics and all of that, there's actually 24 different possible derivations of the 4 personality codes. So that means you want, if you've got a very wide audience, you want it to be as even as possible, because you want to reach all 4, because you never know. Is it a high K that wants to buy from you? Is it a high A who wants to buy from you? Now, there are other instances where you may know very well the code or the potential code makeup of your target audience. So this just came up to us last night, and it was a woman who was familiar with the bank system, and she said, my target market is blueprints and knowledges. Okay, so the blueprints are inside the box. The Ks are about needing information and data and statistics and research. So that's her target market. So I'm going to reset this. That's how easy it is. And here's what we did. We're going to go to this woman's about page. All I'm doing is I'm copying and pasting the text. I'm going back to the AI tool. I'm just pasting the text. I'm going to get rid of like some of the copyright stuff just because, you know, who cares? And I'm going to decrypt it.
Ooh.
Yeah, so look at that. Her text is very high nurturing, followed by pretty high action, and her target market, which she has said is blueprint and knowledge, are super low. So is her text even reaching her target market? It's not.
So and one of the things we heard about this person is that she wanted to lift these people up a bit and get them to to understand a little bit more nurture and action, have a little bit more fun. And that's great. But what needs to happen is you need to start where they are. And so she needs to figure out how to start where they are. If she wants to move them, and that's fine. You know, moving amongst the other codes is actually a good thing, and that's one of the things that we are practicing doing as BANKCODE, both customers and trainers. She needed to start where they are rather than say, here's where I am, come meet me.
I mean, isn't that a fascinating tool? I mean, we've been putting everything through this AI tool. Every email we send, oh, I wonder what the code is of this email. And it's fascinating to see what they are. So that's an example. Let me reset this and go back to, I know Marie had another example, and it was from, and this is going to show a really amazing, what do we want to call it? A benefit of using this is it's not just can you decrypt the code, but we're going to show you what the next step is. So Marie, this is what you had sent, which was an email from Tim. So
right.
You can say a little bit about this.
Yeah, so this is an email. I mean, all of this took place prior to getting the AI. So I just thought, let me see what the code of his email is, and then I want to run my response, which I'd already, sent to him through to see if they match. So here we go with the decrypting of his email. Okay, so his is, pretty much all codes.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I was really interested in is just checking my emailed response back to him to see how closely I matched.
And this is what step 2 is. So, I mean, you can just send anything through to see what the code is, but then once you do that, you have the option of going, well, let me respond. Let me put in my response. And so here was Marie's response.
And ideally, you would do this before you send your email.
Exactly, yes. And if you look right here, you can see this is what the code was of Tim's email. And by the way, you can code all sorts of things like LinkedIn profiles and Facebook posts, but emails, because they've written them and they've written them in the moment, and it's probably more their authentic personality style, their emails are probably going to be more accurate as far as their real code. So let's see, so we see that Tim's code was A.B.N.K. according to the email he'd written, and let's see what Marie's email ended up being. Only slightly off, honestly, only slightly off.
Well, the second one on his email was B, and I've got a much lower blueprint on this one.
And isn't that interesting, since you're a high blueprint?
Exactly.
And I mean, I think it's because those of us who've been in business for a while, because this is what I found, is my blueprint ends up being low, even though it's my very highest code. And I think we've learned to, to write to all codes, but then sometimes we actually need to write to their code.
Right, right.
So, Mark, do you want to unmute yourself and give us an example from you?
Yes, I do. And I'm actually going to send this to you in the chat because that's how I have to get this works. There you go. So what happened here is this is essentially what would have been a spam email. You could call it that. I mean, I've seen this guy's emails before, and he wants to sell me, advertising in I'm not Wall Street Journal, other things, and but essentially what he talked about was making sure you hit your target audience. What he's also saying in this text is that anybody that has a business can benefit from his services, right? So he's sending this, and then he's also talking about target audience. And so when I put his information that he sent me through there, look at that. There's high action, there's a little bit of blueprint, a little bit of knowledge. Probably, I think I didn't do what Don did, which was get rid of some of the technical stuff, because that probably brought the blueprint up. Because what I noticed was that his knowledge was lower, similar to this. His action was high, but his blueprint and nurture were very low. So essentially what I did is what Eric Lofthome calls reverse prospecting, and I said, okay, so you are saying that your target audience is everybody, because everybody can benefit from what you have to offer, but you're losing half of your audience because you're not communicating to the blueprints and the nurtures. You're only communicating to the actions and somewhat to the knowledges. So that was another way to use the AI. He hasn't gotten back to me, but I've heard of other people doing this already with the AI and saying, you might need a little bit of help with how you present to the world as a potential customer.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's just a fascinating tool, and you get so much insight into doing this. So I want to go to, let me.
Can I make another point while you're going there?
Of course.
The other thing that it's not that we need to bankify everything, which is what we're talking about. when you do your website or whatever and it's for everyone or whatever, you want to try to be all 4 codes. But there could be times when you're not necessarily going to want that. For instance, if you're selling essential oils, you're probably going to want your nurture to be a little bit higher than the other codes. If you are selling fast cars, you're probably going to want your action to be a little higher than the other codes. So it's not necessarily that you want to balance it. You just want to be sure that you know who your audience is and design the code for that particular audience.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the last example we're going to use is, Marie, you'd had someone email you, and it was a short email, but it was you know, there was some personal and business. So I'm going to put it in here, and then we're going to decrypt it, and then Marie's going to tell us what she did about that.
So, total nurturer, and her message was total nurturing. And when I responded to her, you know, I had to go out of town on a family situation, and so I'm back, and then I'm, you know, kind of getting right back to business. So I put my email through, the one I had sent to her, to see how well I had done, and I was really sad to say, warning, just the warning sign there. So I was not nurturing like she was in the email in my response.
Yes. So you tried again.
Yeah, so I did try again just to see, you know, if I could improve upon it. I wasn't going to resend it to her, but I just wanted to see, and I did much better. How about that?
Look at that. Look at that. And this is amazing. Again, what the AI does for us is really give us some insight into whatever we're looking at, whether it's someone else's LinkedIn page, their website bio, their email, or our own communications with somebody, whether that's marketing collateral, whatever it might be. And then do we need to adjust it? And what we know from hearing from the tech team at CodeBreaker Technologies is that, I mean, they're already working on the next derivations. I think they're getting ready to produce like the 5th version of this. But next year, one of the things that's going to happen is you decrypt somebody's code, or you decrypt code of whatever text you put in there, and then there's going to be suggestions of how you can respond. We're not there quite yet, but we will be very soon. So this is your opportunity now. I'm going to stop sharing. This is your opportunity now, whether it's in chat or you want to come out on, you know, on Zoom. And what do you want us to send through the AI in our back end, our virtual office, to crack the code and decrypt the code of whatever you want to send to us? So William, Basha, Ann, what do you want, and Karen, what do you want us to send through? This is where you get to play.
You can just send a recent email you got. You can go to a profile that you're interested in on LinkedIn. You can go anywhere and find something that you're curious about and just cut and paste it, or do whatever you need to do to make sure we get it.
I think the very first thing I did was I put my LinkedIn about page, and then I put the home page of our website, and I put the about page of our website, and I did all, like, what does it say? What does it say? I couldn't wait to hear. So this is your opportunity to tell us, you know, what you want us to decrypt.
So I have a LinkedIn profile. Who do I send it to?
Excellent.
Well, if you put it in the chat, William, then I can put it in.
Yeah, just
I actually put the person's LinkedIn profile in the chat.
Yeah, if you just put the link to that LinkedIn profile, absolutely.
Or even cut and paste it.
Okay. Yeah, let me find his LinkedIn profile.
Okay. That's what I did first also, was my LinkedIn About Me section.
So I have hopefully a short story about something that happened today. This is literally an email that I got. I got a response from a super high action that said no. So I put the word no, into the AI, and well, there was nothing. I mean, there wasn't nothing. There was, I believe, there was there nothing in the. There was, I believe, there was
You
no.
broke it, Mark. You really.
But it was high action. It said high action, and then it actually said NA. It was an NAK, NABK, I believe.
Yeah, because it didn't know what to do with the fact that there was just a one-word, two-letter word.
Funny, but obviously what showed up was action, because that's who he was. He just said, "I don't want to waste any time with this. Time is money, whatever." The answer is no. Thank you. So it was a legitimate email, even though I just typed the word no in there.
Yeah, and there was no sign off. There was no nothing. It was just no. All right. And Karen, be thinking about what you want to send in. Basha, Anne, think about what you want to send in. Because we're having fun. We've been on several calls today. Some related to this, some not. And but it always comes up. And in one of the calls, it's like, send this web page through. Send that web page through. Wait, send in my LinkedIn profile. Wait, it was just, they were fascinated about what they could. All right, so I see. Okay, so Karen. All right, let me see. Let's see what Karen has. All right, and then I will share my screen so we can all see, because it's all exciting. All right.
It looks fascinating.
Oh, it's the funnest tool and toy, but it's not just a toy. That's the thing. Like, you can think of it as a toy, but it's not just a toy, because it gives you amazing information. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you're not responding. You're.
I know. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna fix that.
Does the AI actually do any scripting?
What do you mean by that?
So we've got that it decodes, but would it provide some examples on how to make it better?
It won't necessarily give examples on how. So this is like the first step, right, where you're decrypting it. Yeah. And then the second step, if you wanted to do that, is to put your response in. Next year, what they're thinking is going to happen by the end of this year or the very beginning of 2020 is here are some ways that you can respond. Kind of like when you're texting and it tries to anticipate your next word. It tries to do that. But what is cool about this, so we just put in this email that Karen submitted. Now, so you can see the code. What we haven't shown you, because we were trying to be, fairly, respectful of your time, is, so here's the values. So the very top code is K, followed by a fairly high A, and then a really low N, and a really low E. So then you're going to see the behaviors, and you can click on that and see, well, here's the behaviors of the knowledge type. You can look at that, you can click sales tips and see, here's sales tips for the knowledge type. Triggers, which means here's what's going to help them say yes. And the tripwires, which is going to be a no. And then there's a short video that Sherry Tree, the founder and creator of the BANKCODE system, created for, the knowledge type. So you have that information, and then if you say, so here's the email, now here's how I can respond.
Well, see, I sent that out, and so I was curious when I sent it out to, people I haven't talked a lot with, and so I'm both action and knowledge. I'm an action first and a knowledge second, so it does. That's how I wrote it. That's
how you wrote it. So
match your code, yes.
Right. And that's fair, right? Like when I first stumbled upon Bank and I, kind of went back to my old websites, it was all blueprint nurturing. There was very little action. There was very little knowledge. There might have been a little bit because, again, I've had almost 2 decades of marketing experience, but, it's like, I've really been speaking to my own personality type. So
Right.
what this tells you, Karen, is like, oh, I'm speaking to my personality type.
Mm-hmm.
I need to beef up, and this is where the tools and the training and then obviously this technology comes into play where you can, you know, up those other ones. So does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so let's see. I see something that, okay, I think Anne sent something. So here's an email that Anne received. So let's see. So give me a moment to try to copy and paste this from the chat. Okay. So we're going to go up here and reset this. All right, so let's see what happens. There you go, Anne. So the person who's, oh yes, you sent this. So Anne, action, nurturing, knowledge, and then somewhat of a low blueprint. What do you think?
I would say that's her code.
There you go. So do you all see how easy it is to only speak in our codes? Because that's what we're familiar with. We have a lens of how we see the world, and we tend to think, well, doesn't everybody see the world that way? And the reality is, no, not everybody does. So now let me do William's link, the LinkedIn profile that he sent me.
So while you're doing that, Anne's note is that this email was sent to her. So I would say whoever wrote it did an excellent job of matching your code, Anne. Really good.
Oh, and I thought it was from Anne because I saw the XOXO from Ann Stone. So that's why I thought it was from her.
Dawn, is it all right if I send you something by email just to try out?
Sure. So let me do this one first. I'm trying to find the About page.
Yeah, I realized when I did that, I thought he had actually filled it out. It looks like he has not filled it out.
Right.
That tells you something right there, doesn't it?
Is there a profile anywhere on this page other than the About?
See, this is a new profile. He was supposed to have filled in the summary and About part. It's really not a good one.
Yeah, if you copy that, it's going to be all K probably.
I know it is, but I mean, that's also part of the, you know, the speed coding skills that we've gained. So let's just see. Oh, that's
Yeah, I don't think that's not a good one. Sorry.
No, that's all right. That's all right. Okay. All right. And so Anne is saying that, you know, so Anne, you're going to send me, I'm going to stop sharing and I can go check my email. And
So I think that was Basha who wanted to email.
Yes.
oh, Basha?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it was me.
Dawn, so let me put it in the chat and then you can email it to me. Dawn at the Shuler Group, LLC.com. And then go ahead and send that to me and I'll do that. And William, if you have something else you want to send while we're waiting on Basha.
Okay, I have another
I sent you mine. I sent you mine by email. So did you get it?
Let me check.
So it'd be from BG Ruta, I think. Anyways, but just see Basha.
I haven't received it yet. Let me make sure I spelled my email correctly.
Yeah, and I haven't seen your send in the chat yet.
Oh, it went to webinar at webinarjam.net.
Oh, yeah. So send it to the email that I just put in the chat.
Okay. So, all right, I'll do that. All right. Okay, the chat. It's just that I'm on my phone, so I don't really have it. So maybe it's just...
Well, and speaking of that, I believe you did the phone app, Dawn, and you actually transcripted somebody talking and put it into the AI.
Yeah.
You actually transcript people talking.
So what we've done a couple of times is you bring it up on, so when you've got, you know, you've got your access, you've got your account, you bring it up on a web browser on your phone. And then you log in, and then just like you saw where I was copy and pasting the text, just like on your phone, instead of typing text, where you're able to do voice to text. You press that and you either speak into it or you tell somebody, tell me about yourself, tell me about what you do. And of course it's a game and you're going to explain what you're doing. Like I want to get a sense of who you really are. And this is this cool tool I have, and I'll explain more in a moment. And then you get them to talk, and then you put that in there. You submit it, and it's text. All right, so William sent me another one. So let's bring that up.
So one of the things that we are also looking at doing is reading and transcribing a text, having some kind of text that's actually printed, and then reading it and seeing if there's a difference between the voice translation of the reading of it and the actual text, if the AI codes it differently.
Oh, that's interesting, Mark.
Yeah, that's another of the many experiments we plan to do with this.
Yes. So William, this is Manish's or Manish's code. This is how it shows up.
Yes, from actually talking to him on the phone, that's probably seems to be pretty much correct. I can see that blueprint knowledge being the high points.
It's rare to see a high blueprint in this, because I think the blueprint standards are pretty high, obviously because they should be.
That's correct.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, it's very interesting. And so just like the opposite example, if Manish was trying to reach more action nurturers or nurturer actions, he's going to have to change the way that he presents himself. All right, so I'm going to check one more time to see if I have Basha's email.
I don't think. Yeah. I'm trying to do it. Oh well.
Well, you know what? We can figure that out. So
yeah. Okay.
And you can also email us later, and we will definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah, we've done that. We've done that as well. All right. So let me go back to the just the end of because we're wrapping up our time, and I really appreciate how much time you've taken out of your days or evening, depending on where you are. We're on the East Coast, so it's evening for us, and we just really appreciate your spending this time with us. So we're just going to wrap up a little bit with, if you think this is fascinating, if you want to check this out for yourself, then we're going to show you how you can do that. So we've shown you, we showed you the AI demo. We got all excited, right? Because we just dove right in because we just think, those of us who have gotten access to this just for a week, we're seeing it really change our minds about how we talk to people, whether it's in text or scripts or whatever. I'm sending everything through AI, and I know Mark is too. Mark, honestly, is probably better and more diligent about that than I am, and that might be his high K. Like, he wants to code everything, and every now and then I'm efficient because of my blueprint and I forget. So, but we're still doing it like pretty much several times a day. So for those of you that are familiar with BANK and BANKCODE, and maybe you've heard us talk about what's available, and you've been, in our circles, a lot of us, what we do is we ask you to take an online assessment, which is BANKCODE, and to code yourself. It's a 90-second assessment. And when you take yourself through that assessment, you get a personality report of your code, and we get a report on your code as well. And that is $29 a month. And that's something that's been around for years. And honestly, Mark and I consider ourselves as customers. Yes, we're trainers in this system, but we consider ourselves customers. It doesn't matter even if we weren't customers. Even if this wasn't part of our business, we would want to know somebody's code. So whether it's before a discovery call or a meeting or whatever it might be, we've gone into companies and we've coded all the employees as corporate consultants. we use this tool, and it's $29 a month. Then you bring in CODEBREAKER, which we've just shown you, and that is $49 a month. And this is where you just get to put anything you want through that system. Okay, so quick story. Mark and I, we do tea ritual every morning without fail. We don't work before that. We don't do anything. Except last week on Wednesday, the day that the AI debuted, finally, I was like, Mark, we got to hold off on tea. Like, pause on tea. We've got to, I got to put my LinkedIn profile through. I got to put the website through. I got to see what's happening. It really is what we consider a game changer. And if you want both, so BANKPASS is $29 a month. AI is $49 a month. If you want to bundle both of them, that's $59 a month. That's pretty much saving you $20 if you want to bundle both of them. There's no long-term commitment. It's a month by month. It's, you know, as much as you can eat. Think of it as an all-you-can-eat buffet. You can send as many people through your BANKPASS as you want. You can put as much information through the BANKPASS AI. By the way, we've put books through, like, you know, Word documents of books before they've gone to publishing. We've put books through. We've put workbooks. We've put sales scripts. We've put outlines. Like I said, we've really been playing with this. So there's no limit to the...
Talk about having people who have their, I call it their manifesto or whatever it is, whatever their thing is, because a lot of people have written about what they're going to be teaching, presenting, whatever. And, you know, we're thinking, what happens when they put that entire body of knowledge? And as far as we know, there's no limit to the amount of text you can put into this thing. We haven't seen it yet. We put a large amount in. Just
100,000 words, you know, like a book that's, you know, 100,000 words, like we haven't, it's coded the whole thing. So, you know, we know this is an awesome tool. If this is something that you want to get started with, we invite you to reach out to the person who invited you to this webinar. And as an incentive, and also because we love what we do, we're all trainers here, is that we're offering a exclusive private group training on Friday, September 20th, that we're going to go through different ways you can use the AI. We shared a few of those, but we've gone into depth in our own exploration of this, and we figured out a few things, and by the 20th we're going to have even more. So we're going to be able to coach you and train you on ways that you can use it that haven't even come out in this webinar. And so think about, you know, are you interested in BANKPASS, the $29 a month? Are you interested in CODEBREAKER AI, which is $49 a month? Or are you interested in the bundle, which is $59 a month? And again, I'd reach out to the person who invited you to this webinar and let them know where you want to go with this, because AI is here and it's the wave of the future, and why not use it to your advantage? So with that being said, I'm going to stop the screen share and just see if there's any questions that anybody has, or anything that we can answer.
I think it's awesome.
Oh, we do too. We really do.
Fascinating.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you again for sharing your time with us. We appreciate you. Have a fabulous rest of your day or evening, and we look forward to being in touch and sharing more of this great information. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Super. Thanks so much.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night.
You too.